So about 60 days ago, we brought a couple of our pepper plants inside to begin overwintering them. And as we can see, they are thriving. And so today I want to walk through 3 pruning considerations for these babies over the course of the winter here. So before we get started on the 3 pruning considerations here, if you're wondering how to overwinter pepper plants or what even that is, the first video in this playlist is our step-by-step process for pulling our pepper plants out of the garden at the end of the season and getting them into some new fresh seedling mix to begin the overwintering process. And about 60 days later, we're in a position like this, where we've got amazing, new, beautiful foliage growth on here. And if we look really closely in here, we can actually see a whole lot of new flowers that are coming in. So our 2 babies here, this is Henry the habanero, and this is Hercules the habanero, are both doing really, really well. And what I want to start going through are those 3 pruning considerations. And I say considerations intentionally because there is absolutely not a right way to garden, a wrong way to garden, but rather a number of different approaches. And so it's all a matter of you doing what brings you the most joy, the most happiness, because that is what gardening is all about. So to get started with our first pruning technique, that is to remove any of the older dead growth that might be on the plant. And so I'm actually going to pull over Hercules for this and take a look up here. What we can see is that we have all of our old pruning marks from when we brought it inside, and all of the new growth is happening a little bit lower. And so this upper part of the plant, it's not going to get any new growth on it. And so what we can do with our pruning shears is just go to all of these stems that is above the last points of growth and simply chop it off. And this is definitely more of an aesthetic prune than functional because it's just removing the old growth, but it's one that I really like to do. So moving on to the second pruning consideration, we need to begin thinking through where do we want the plant to begin putting its energy for new foliage growth. And for myself personally, I like to clear out the middle a little bit, and then I also like to focus the energy on a couple of few branches to kind of grow outwards from the core center of the plant. So let's get started by taking a look at Henry. And as you can see, there's a lot of growth there right in the middle. And I like to remove some of that because it starts to just fold all over on top of itself, and that means that sunlight does not get through to any of the foliage or flowers and fruit down below. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of poke through the branches to see where the growth is coming from and what my options are. And what I can see here is that we've got a really nice stem coming out this way, but then this one here, it has a stem that's coming back towards us into the middle as well. So I think that's the one I'm going to take off first. And with Henry, I'm also going to take off just a few of the leaves that are down here in the middle. And with those, all I'm going to go to do is go in and just pinch them off. So look at this. Look at how kind of nice and cleaned up that is. And we've got really kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 really nice directions of growth for Henry now to be focusing all of its energy into. And at a later point in time, I might actually chop some of those for them to bush out and branch out a little bit more as well. But I'm super happy with that second cut to redirect all of Henry's energy into those key areas and to remove a little bit of those layers of foliage that were existing in the middle. All right, so just before we get to the third pruning consideration, if you've gotten any value from these tips so far, please leave us a like and a comment. That really, really helps us get in front of new gardeners out there. And for those of you that I have not met before, I'm Jordan from Mind and Soil, where we're looking to introduce 1 million individuals to mindful gardening. So if you're looking to feel more peacefulness, more calmness, more restoration in your life, then go ahead, subscribe. We put out new videos every single week for you to be getting your hands dirty, feeling comfortable and confident in the garden. So let's get into that third and final pruning consideration. And I do have one bonus little observation afterwards. What we also notice on this plant right now is that we have a lot of flowers. And I'm looking at Hercules here, and everywhere that I look, there are tons of flowers. And ultimately, the pepper fruit, in this instance a habanero, is going to grow out of that flower once it has been successfully pollinated. But for myself right now, I want the plant putting all of its energy into new foliage growth. If those flowers turn into fruit and begin to grow, it's going to be putting its energy there, which is totally fine. And one of the individuals in our community, Adrian, he has been growing his pepper plants inside, and he has multiple jalapenos and habaneros growing that he's going to be able to harvest in the middle of winter, which is pretty amazing. And so that's totally another path that you could go down, just leaving them on there and hand pollinating them a little bit. For myself, I'm going to go ahead and remove them to redirect all that energy to new foliage and stem growth. And so to do that, all that I need to do is go around the plant and just simply pop them off. Pop them, pop, and pop. So here we have it. Hercules is all nicely cleaned up. I'm still finding 1 or 2 flowers under there because there were so many. And Henry is also looking really, really good. And again, just a little bit of tidying up in the middle of winter here to focus its energy into the areas that we want to see that new growth coming from. Now, I'm going to share that one interesting observation that I've made over the course of the last 60 days. But the next video in this playlist is our day 120 check-in on these babies. So if you want to see how they are doing in kind of the very tail end of winter before we start thinking about the spring, then go ahead and watch that next video in the playlist. But let's head upstairs right now because I've noticed this kind of interesting observation over the course of the past 60 days here. And so this is something that I've seen on a bunch of my pepper plants, where in some instances I've left a little bit more of that summer growth on and more of the stem, and on others I've removed nearly all of it. And take a look at this. So what we can see here is that when I've left more of that stem on, there's no growth on there at all, and only a teeny tiny bit here. But then when I've chopped it nearly all the way down, the plant is putting a lot of its energy into this growth here, and the plant is doing a lot better. And so my kind of hypothesis here is that when we have left all of this plant growth on, kind of hoping that maybe that will give it more nodes and shoots for new growth to come out of, the plant's trying to keep all of that alive. And so it's actually putting its energy towards maintaining that, opposed to just focusing all of it into new growth, which I believe is what's happening in this instance. It doesn't have to maintain anything else, any other stem, but rather just focus on, okay, we've got a root system and we need to put out new growth, and we've got these nodes to be able to do it. And so that's why on each of my plants that I've left a little bit more on and then cut back really far, the ones that I've cut back really far are doing a lot better. And that's something that I'm going to take into next season as well. And as you probably noticed, those ones are in the windowsill because that is another little experiment that I'm running. So you want to keep your eyes peeled for that one. But in the meantime, head to the next video in this playlist to see how these babies are doing at day 120 and what's happened over the course of the next 60 days. And other than that, feel free to check out some of the other videos on our profile. That's all for right now. Go get your hands dirty. Can't wait to catch you on the next one, and I'll see you soon.